Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, The Inked Reader. My name is Eva and today I am doing a mini wrap-up because I didn't read much in May. Okay, let me correct myself. I've read a lot, but I finished only 5 things and 3 of those I've done an hour video, so I'm not gonna say anything about them apart showing them to you. At the beginning of May I made a bad choice and I started 11 books, and then life happened and I found myself overwhelmed because all 11 books were quite chunky, and so I would read half an hour of these and then half an hour of that, or maybe an hour of that one day, and I felt like I was going nowhere. So at the time, I decided to stop everything, and I've read 3 books that were not part of those 11, and I just focused on finishing those 3 books. I read one after one back to back, and I found myself a bit more grounded. So I was then happy to go back and delve again in the pile of books I've started. And to be fair, I already finished one, and I'm just it's the 3rd of June when I'm filming these, and I'm about to finish the second one. So hopefully by the end of June, I will make a dent in the 11 books pile. So it's gonna be a short one, but I have filmed a recent comics wrap up, which is gonna come just after this video, and I'm gonna talk all about the comics I've read in the last couple of months. So stay tuned for that, but let's wrap up from the least enjoyable to the most enjoyable read, the 5 things I've read in May. Technically I'm just reviewing 2, but anyway. Number 5. Iron Flame. Now this is not number 5 because I jumped on the same wagon that everybody else and their mother seemed to be of, you know, this is like the most horrible things they've ever read. It's just a number 5 because objectively compared to the other books it was the least enjoyable, but I still had an okay time with it. I listened to both Fourth Wing and Iron Flame on audiobook, and that maybe helped my experience of it. I don't know, it didn't feel extra lengthy because I would listen to it in, you know, when I was showering, when I was going to work on a bus and so on. So it flew by pretty fast, and initially when I finished this book I was like, why is everyone hating on it? Like, what's up with everyone? Because every time I would hear a wrap-up for this book, people were dropping the series. Oh, I will never read this series again. Oh, this was trash. It was the most horrible things I've ever read. And I was just like, have I read the same book of these people, or listened to the same book that these people did? Like, everybody pulled their hair out for Fourth Wing, which I enjoyed. It was okay. It was a 4-star, 3.75, something like this. This would be like a 3.5, 3 stars. I generally don't understand all the hate that this book gets. People say it's slow, nothing happens. What? Like, have you read the same thing I've read? Like, a lot of things happen in this book. That you don't like them, that's different. But even the beginning, I felt like it was necessary to then. It was a necessary build up to what happens after. And I am generally a bit baffled on what everybody's talking about, because compared to other books that are there, other romantic fantasy, this is not that bad. It's not remarkable, but I mean, I think when you read a romantic fantasy and the couple gets together in the first book, then it's not that easy to continue on. And because she does not throw in another love interest that threatens the first couple, but she does something slightly different, I actually appreciated that. The tension is still there, but of course it's not going to be like in the first book, because we know that these guys are together. We already know that you know, how much they care for each other. So maybe that is the issue, where the first book is so exciting because you want them to get together, and the second book doesn't have it anymore. But I thought that the dragons and the action made up for it. Overall, I thought it was okay. I thought there was nothing wrong with it. It's not my favorite series ever. I don't pull my hair out of the series, but I will listen to the next installment when it comes out and see how it goes. I would suggest she wraps up the series relatively soon. I wouldn't push this or kind of stretch this for too long. Like this series, I think, again, once the main characters are together, there's not much you can do. Depends on, you know, what she does with the bad guys and all of that. My final thoughts would be, this was never like a Shakespearean play. So I don't understand why people are so hateful towards the second book, because I don't think it was that different from the first one. But love to chat in the comments down below with you. and see what you thought or why you hated it so much, if that's what the case. Is it maybe again because I listened to it, because of the format I utilized to kind of ingest this story? I generally don't know. I think this is a book that overall I would just say, yeah, I read it, it was okay, yeah, I like the ending, it was action-packed, okay, next. While so much tragedy and so much hate, which I don't think it's deserved, considering people read way worse trash all the time and they don't get so mad as they did for this one. So yeah, it was fine. And at number 432, I would put The Phantom Prince. So okay, so if I go in like 3, let's say, I would probably put, that's curious. Okay, so I would probably put number 4, Ted Bundy in Conversations with a Killer. This is a book with the transcript of the tapes of 2 journalists interviewing Bundy, so you kind of get his perspective on his crime. Then I would put Ted Bundy, The Only Living Witness, as number 3, and this is just it's the same the journalist that interviewed him put together a book about the investigations in Ted Bundy history and his crimes and his trials. And then a number 2, probably I would put The Phantom Prince, which is probably the least well written of the 3. Yeah, if you can consider like a transcript of these, like written in the sense, but it's the most insightful one, because here you get ex-girlfriend of Ted Bundy that spent 5 to 6 years with him, especially during the time that he was starting to kill women. You get her perspective of how she lived him and her experience of him. But I've spent literally an hour unpacking these, sharing all my thoughts about the books, about Ted Bundy, true crime, and so on. So I will link it down below. I have put timestamps, which means that if you don't care about my thoughts on Ted Bundy or the part before about why people like true crime, you can just get the reviews, the in-depth reviews of these 3 books. I really kind of unpack them, why I liked and didn't like about them, and so on, in the central part of the video. So you can just click down below, check out that video if you want. If you want to watch it all, I would love for you to, but if you just want to hear the reviews of these, they are there for you to access. So yeah, these are the 3 books that I put aside all the other 11 books I was already reading, and I just focused on reading these ones back to back. I found that true crime really soothes me, really grounds me. Yeah, I was kind of focusing only on these and not thinking about all the books I should be reading, and I wasn't. I went into this tunnel of finding more about Ted Bundy and his crimes and how he was perceived by other people in his life, and I had the greatest time. And I will have to put a number 1, 12 Rules for Life, an antidote, I'm not gonna pronounce that, am I? By Jordan Peterson. 12 Rules for Life. You can read yourself the subtitle here. This is a Penguin classic, and it's written by Jordan B. Peterson. This is my first time reading something by him. I initially became interested in Peterson because when I was studying psychology, I looked at a couple of his seminars, a couple of his actually taught lessons that you could find online. And I really liked how he spoke, and I really liked how he was looking into like psychology and the advice he was giving. So I do realize that Peterson nowadays is a quite controversial figure, and I want to premise that I don't follow I don't have the time, even if I wanted to follow his political side of things, and I decided to go into this book because of the psychological knowledge that he has. I wanted to get to read about his experience working with people as a psychologist, clinical psychologist. So I loved this book. I really found this book enlightening. I really found that this book contained such simple and yet powerful rules to follow, and I believe that anybody could really benefit from at least reading about these rules and at least embracing some of them, if not all of them. I think they are very simple again, but they make a lot of sense, and I don't think you need to embrace his views, political views, whether it is in order to benefit from this book or from, employing these 12 rules in your everyday life. I generally don't. I really enjoyed the overture, like the foreword. The foreword is written by Dr. Norman Doidge, MD, and he wrote The Brain That Changed Itself. I wanna reach out to this book because I really enjoyed having that premise, reading that premise before going into the book, because he takes a very objective view of what this book is and of the person who wrote it is. And it really helped me go into this book just putting aside anything else I knew about Peterson and just focusing on what message was he given in this book. And I tapped, as you could see, shit out of this. I've heard some people saying that this book is quite complicated to read because it goes on a lot of tangents, and it does, it definitely does. He might start talking about a passage of the Bible and then he goes and speaks about a Marvel movie. He explores different media and literature, from Shakespeare, from Nietzsche, I don't know how you pronounce in English, Nietzsche, I put the name down here, from Nietzsche to Stephen King. And I was able, though, because of his fluent and clear writing, to follow his thoughts and his concepts through. I think even if he goes on a tangent, all tangents for me made sense, and I was able to grasp what he was saying. And I think you can read this book and appreciate a lot of it without necessarily embracing all of his views. For example, he's clearly a religious person. He talks about the Bible a lot. I don't know, if he's Catholic, Protestant, whether he's, I don't have information. But that's to say, at the end of this, I didn't become religious because of the book. But I loved how he dissected and taught me about passages of the Bible and their meaning behind it, which I would otherwise never know because I have personally not read the Bible. Maybe one day I will, just as a study, you know what I mean? Like, again, I'm not religious, and I'm still not, but it made me look even at those kind of sacred texts in a different way, in a way for you to also learn history and learning about culture and the world. And his education and experience in clinical psychology especially is something that I admire and respect a lot. I also love about Peterson that because he's so clear and so fluent, he can explain his point of view in a way that by the end of his book, I understood why he stands or why he has the views that he has. And I'm not necessarily embracing them again, but I understand them. I understand where he's coming from with those thoughts and those opinions. And because I can understand them, it also gives you the power of thinking of your own and being able to verbalize your own points better. Because if you know, even if you consider him, your worst enemy, if you know, because you're able to know his point of view, where it's coming from, how the dots connect, what made him reach that point, it gives you better insight. And I think you can also create a more constructive discussion with the other person. So the ability to express yourself and your points in such a clear way, it might make for more meaningful discussions, even with someone who doesn't agree with you. Because if you can start from a point of, I see your point of view, I see where you're coming from, but this is where I come from, there is a connection there, even if it's based on a disagreement, if it makes sense. So I wish one day to be able to express my opinions where they're coming from in the same way that he can. I now understand the figure so much better. I understand where his passions lay a bit more. I, for example, understand that his view on communism, for example, he explains very well why he is so against any totalitarian form of government, and he explains it and unpacks it. And so now I understand why sometimes he says the things he says, because of where he comes from and what is particularly important to him. So yeah, eye-opening, loved the rules. The rules are so simple and also so humble. For someone, I think he's misinterpreted a lot as well, and that's what the foreword by the other author said. Like, I think this guy is misinterpreted because of how the media are portraying him. On certain aspects, not on everything, but on certain aspects. And he is as much as a historical student, as much as a clinical psychology student, as anything else that you can be considered, I think, these days. And so, yeah, I think also, like, there is, for example, a rule about, listen to everybody, because everyone can teach you something. Be humble and always open to get in, to listen to other people. Really stop and listen. That is a rule that stuck with me a lot, because, he was saying, no matter where they're coming from, no matter, if you have complete opposite views, just stop and really pay attention, really listen, just listen. You don't have to do anything else. And it's amazing what you can learn and about the other person, about their point of view, but in general, what you can learn by just listening in to other people. And someone who's studying to become a therapist. I think that is, you know, it's one of the most important lessons that they teach us, but the way he taught us and why it's so important really humbled me, really made me take a step back and put more effort in just being present in the moment. So again, I did learn a lot of things that I will be able, on a just a therapist perspective, to bring back or to step back when needs to be in the therapeutic room. And yeah, I am definitely gonna reach out for the other book. So he wrote another 12 rules. I've heard mixed things about the sequel, but he also wrote, now he's coming up with another book, and he talks about passages of the Bible, stories in the Bible, and what they might mean for society and culture. And I'm really interested in that. Again, not religious, but I do understand the importance that sacred texts have. And so if he can teach me more about them in a way that he writes, it really works for me, I can really understand his writing, great. I'm gonna reach out for more books by him. I really enjoy just reading this is a dense book, but I read it very quickly, because again, it just read through so peacefully. It was a peaceful experience in a sense. It was just, you know, I was just learning. I said, oh, okay, that's a good point. Oh, maybe I should try maybe in that way. So it made me think for myself and think about, oh, how can I adapt these? Do I want to adapt these? Or maybe I don't agree with you and this is why. But it really provided me with a good experience of reading, with a learning experience while reading something like this. I love reading nonfiction. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. This is my mini wrap up, but stay tuned for the comics wrap up. Mini, I ramble a lot, I guess, so it's not that small at the end of the day. But if you're new, I would love for you to subscribe. Check out with us next month if I manage to read any of the 11 books, or how many of those 11 books I'm in the middle of will manage to finish. So subscribe and see. I'll see you next time. Take care, guys. Ciao.